Tomorrow in Cape Town, more than 1,000 people from businesses, governments and special interest groups in 80 countries will be joined by up to 14 African heads of state to discuss the continent's burning issues. Now, is this just another talk shop, or is there value in such a gathering? To share his thoughts, I'm now joined in studio by Stanlib emerging markets economist Xhanti Payi. Thanks very much for joining us and welcome to the program.
It's good to be here, Peter.
Okay, so, this is WEF number 23 for Africa, and I wonder, is it really useful? Does it really affect change on our continent?
Sure. I think the most important thing that's happening is that, it is come to Africa and it's now on our own soil, and we're discussing these issues and very much driven on African issues. And I think if you look at some of the headings that they've put out there, these are things that are actually really necessary to actually make sure that we take the Africa drive and the Africa story forward.
All right, so this year's theme is delivering on Africa's promise. What's that about? What are they trying to do?
Yeah, so I mean, it is really to say, how do we actually do this thing about the story of Africa? I mean, one of the bigger themes in Africa right now that we're talking about in investments is, if you come to Africa, we've got this number of growing workforce that is going to be great consumers going forward. Consumption is going to be increasing, so we want investors, retail companies, everybody to come through and invest in Africa. Now, part of the problem, though, is how do we make that number, between 500 million to 1 billion people who are going to be workers, to be actually also consumers. So, you need to give them skills so that they actually are part of a workforce that's productive and that is actually going to be able also to be consumers. So that's part of the story that we need to deal with.
I'm going to touch on that again in a short while, but a big story for us at the moment, Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan is in the country. The two countries have signed some accords, and I'm just wondering, is this the kind of thing you think is going to make a difference?
Sure. I think part of the problem has been, I suppose, first of all, it's interesting to note that South Africa and Nigeria relations have been a bit strained over time, particularly in the eyes of the media. But it's something that they've had to deal with for quite some time, particularly given the size of Nigeria and particularly the competition that seems to exist between South Africa and Nigeria, both as big countries, as probably superpowers on the continent. So, you need to actually bet that down and make sure that the cooperation works very well.
Those two need to lead the way, don't they? I mean, they almost have to take the front line.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, and also, the cooperation is going to be quite important. I suppose in some sense it's important that the two countries compete, for the share and leadership of Africa. That's going to produce some good results. But at the same time, that cooperation is going to be more important so that both countries can benefit with what they both have that is quite different in terms of
all right, so one big thing for me, and I talk about it all the time, inter-Africa trade is abysmal, and our share of the foreign direct investment in the world is also quite small. What's holding us back? What do we need to change, do you think?
I think the first bit to deal with is infrastructure. I think, the one thing that has allowed us to trade with, the emerging markets like China and Brazil, and certainly, obviously, with the developed market, has been the idea that, there are already set paths for trade, and we need to actually develop those quite fast and quick. But those are the bottlenecks now that we need to actually fix, and that's probably one of the challenges that they need to deal with quite closely in this forum, so that they say, who's going to pay for these roads, who's going to build the roads between the countries to make sure that, one of the contentions has been, some people are going to benefit more than others, because, some countries have stronger manufacturing sectors than others, so, trade will benefit maybe perhaps South Africa more than others. So how do you actually get around some of those tensions?
Xhanti, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but perhaps we can call you back in to do a post-mortem sometime in the week ahead. Sure.